Buckle up, listeners, because today's deep dive is going to be a wild one. We're talking headlines so strange, so out there, you'll think you've stepped into an alternate dimension.
And the best part is, these aren't just your everyday oddities. We're talking about the kind of news that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world.
Exactly. And to guide us through this labyrinth of the bizarre, we're turning to The Edition, for those of you who don't speak Hebrew, a podcast with an uncanny knack for uncovering the most side-splitting, head-scratching news stories from around the globe.
They've really outdone themselves with this episode, let me tell you. We're covering everything from the future of entertainment, get this, betting on scripted events, to legal rulings that'll make your jaw drop, and of course some animal antics that are equal parts hilarious and unbelievable.
Okay, so we got to kick things off with this one.
Oh.
WWE, yeah, you heard that right, World Wrestling Entertainment is apparently throwing around the idea of letting fans bet on the outcome of their matches.
You know, it really makes you wonder about the line between reality and entertainment, doesn't it? Like, if we know who's going to win that WrestleMania main event months in advance, does it change how we watch?
Right. Does it make those epic SmackDowns any less exciting? Or does it, like, add a whole new level of strategy to the game? It'd be like knowing who wins the Super Bowl before the season even starts. Would you still tune in every Sunday?
And here's where it gets really interesting. The article mentions that WWE is thinking about locking in those results months in advance. We're talking way ahead of time. And get this, even the wrestlers themselves wouldn't know who's going to win until much closer to the actual match.
Whoa, talk about a performance. Imagine the pressure of having to stay in character, knowing that people might be betting their life savings on your every move.
It really challenges the whole notion of storytelling, don't you think? The article even speculates that if this whole betting on wrestling thing takes off, we might start seeing it with other scripted events. Picture this, placing bets on who's getting killed off next in your favorite TV show.
Okay, now that's both amazing and terrifying at the same time. It really makes you think, would knowing the ending ruin the surprise or make it even more thrilling? Would you be placing those bets? Hit us up on social media and let us know what you think, because we'd love to hear your take on this one. All right, so from predicting WrestleMania, we're jumping to something a little different, something a little more, shall we say, expressive. A judge in Canada actually ruled that giving someone the middle finger, yeah, you heard that right, is a God-given, charter-protected right.
It sounds crazy, but it's a fascinating case, really. This judge wasn't just messing around. They actually based their decision on the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, specifically citing, get this, freedom of expression.
Okay, but hold on a second. Flipping someone off, that's freedom of expression. I mean, don't get me wrong, free speech is important, but there's got to be a line somewhere, right?
Right, and this case really shines a light on that gray area, you know? What might be considered totally offensive in one culture could be no big deal in another. The law, especially when it comes to something as subjective as expression, always has to try and keep up with changing social norms.
It really makes you think. Where do we draw the line? The article even mentioned that the judge used a pretty interesting phrase. They called it a right of every red-blooded Canadian.
You don't see that kind of language in a legal ruling every day, that's for sure. But hey, maybe a little humor is a good thing, even when you're talking about serious stuff.
Speaking of unexpected things, this episode is like a buffet of bizarre news. So get ready, because we're about to take a quick trip around the world of weird.
Hit me with it. I think I'm ready for anything at this point.
First stop, Japan, a place known for its high-tech toilets and impeccable manners.
But recently, a new phrase has been making headlines: sushi terrorism.
When I first saw this, I have to admit I was both grossed out and incredibly curious.
What exactly is going on here?
Yeah, what is going on?
Picture this. You're at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant. Those plates of deliciousness gliding by, but instead of politely taking a plate, someone decides to lick the sushi as it passes, contaminating it for everyone. And it gets worse.
Worse.
Some folks are messing with the soy sauce bottles, coughing on food, even putting out cigarettes in the shared ginger. It's all over social media, which of course just encourages copycats.
It's hard to imagine this happening anywhere, but especially in Japan.
Right. A country known for its cleanliness and social etiquette.
It seems like such a deliberate violation of their cultural norms.
It really is. And it's
Yeah.
not just bad manners either. This trend is having real-world consequences.
There was that story about Sushiro, right? Their stock prices tanked after a video surfaced of a teenager licking a soy sauce bottle at one of their restaurants.
Exactly. That gets to the deeper issue here. This isn't just about food, it's about trust and social harmony.
Hmm.
Japanese culture places such a high value on respect and collective responsibility. These acts, even if some see them as pranks, really undermine that sense of trust.
I see what you mean.
People are now more wary of shared spaces and resources, especially in a system like conveyor belt sushi, which relies on that mutual respect.
It makes you wonder if you'd ever feel comfortable going back to a conveyor belt sushi place knowing this is happening.
Yeah.
It's a bit unnerving to think about those shared resources now. And from a prank gone wrong, we jump to something a whole lot more unsettling. A hacked Russian TV station broadcasting warnings about nuclear attacks. Not exactly your everyday news story.
Definitely unsettling. It's a scary reminder of how easily information can be manipulated and the power it has to create chaos.
It really makes you think about the times we live in, where the line between what's real and what's fake is getting blurrier by the day.
It's a whole new world of information warfare.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, we've got one more for you. Brace yourselves. A cat in Ohio tested positive for, wait for it, cocaine.
You really can't make this stuff up. I mean, I highly doubt this cat was throwing back beers with the boys.
Poor kitty. It makes you wonder how something like that even happens. It's a sad reminder that animals often end up as the victims of our actions, even unintentionally.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to think about the choices we make and how they can ripple outwards in ways we might not expect.
All right, so we've covered wrestling, freedom of expression, even a cat with a cocaine problem. But this next story takes the cake. Get this. A woman married herself and then, less than 24 hours later, filed for divorce. I know what you're thinking. She did what? But it's true. Full-blown ceremony, the whole 9 yards, and then boom, the next day, she's filing for divorce from herself.
Yeah, it's definitely one for the books. It really got people talking online, though. Some thought it was a publicity stunt. Others thought maybe she was trying to make a statement about, the pressure of marriage or finding yourself in this crazy world of social media.
Oh, the internet went wild with this one. There were comments like, well, that was fast, and someone needs to get this woman a good divorce lawyer, or maybe a therapist.
It's easy to brush it off as just someone trying to go viral, but I think it says something about how we view societal expectations. Like in the age of Instagram and TikTok, where everyone's crafting their perfect online persona, it makes you wonder about the line between expressing yourself and just craving attention.
It's a question we all grapple with these days, right?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as bad publicity? And at what point does a statement become meaningless when it's lost in the echo chamber of social media?
It's definitely something to think about.
Okay, hold on to your hats, folks, because we're wrapping up this wild ride with a story that's almost too unbelievable for words. We're talking next level. What were they thinking?
Oh, yeah, this one was a doozy. Lay it on us.
All right, so picture this. You're on a train in India, just trying to get where you need to go, and out of nowhere, the ticket checker, who's apparently had a few too many, decides to, well, relieve himself on a female passenger.
It's absolutely appalling. It just goes to show that even amidst all the humor and weirdness, we're dealing with real situations with real-world consequences.
It's beyond unacceptable. Thankfully, the article mentioned that the Indian Minister of Railways took action immediately and that employee was fired.
That's good to hear, at least. But this wasn't an isolated incident, unfortunately. The podcast mentioned that there have been similar situations on airplanes recently, which makes you wonder, have we reached a point where common decency and respect just fly out the window when people travel?
It's a disturbing trend for sure. It really highlights the need for stricter rules and enforcement, especially in confined spaces like planes and trains, where passenger safety and well-being should be the top priority.
Absolutely.
Speaking of unsettling situations, our next story takes us to a heartbreaking incident in Texas.
This one really underscores the importance of responsibility, specifically responsible gun ownership.
It's a story that's just heartbreaking.
It truly is a tragedy.
A 3-year-old girl found a loaded gun in her home.
And accidentally shot and killed her 4-year-old sister.
It's just a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can happen when firearms aren't handled responsibly.
According to the sheriff's statement, both parents were home at the time, each believing the other was supervising the children.
It's a scenario that would keep any parent up at night.
It really underscores a point we hear often. These incidents often stem from a momentary lapse in supervision, a false sense of security.
And easy access to a firearm.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, beyond the obvious need for safe storage, What concrete steps can parents take to prevent these kinds of accidents?
I mean,
How do you even begin to talk to a child so young about the dangers of a gun?
that's where education becomes absolutely critical. Organizations like Everytown for Gun Safety recommend a multi-layered approach. It goes beyond just storing guns unloaded and locked.
Though that's essential, of course.
Absolutely. It's about talking to your kids about gun safety from a young age, teaching them that guns are not toys and explaining what to do if they ever encounter a gun, even if it's at a friend's house.
Those conversations are so important, and sadly, we see the consequences when those precautions aren't taken. Every Town for Gun Safety has some alarming statistics. So far this year alone, there have been at least 58 unintentional shootings by children in the U.S., resulting in 22 deaths and 37 injuries. And in 2022, there were 353 unintentional shootings by children, with 156 deaths and 212 injuries.
Those numbers are staggering, and they highlight a very real public health crisis. There are various types of safe storage options available, from trigger locks to gun safes, each with different levels of security. It's critical for gun owners to research and choose the options that best fit their needs and household.
It's a lot to process, moving from the somewhat absurd situation in Japan to this truly tragic story. It makes you wonder if these seemingly isolated incidents, as different as they are, say something about the anxieties we face in today's world.
Interesting.
Let's move on to something a little lighter for our final story today. We're heading to Colombia, where a group of schoolgirls had a brush with the supernatural.
Or did they?
This story sounds like it's straight out of a teen horror movie.
It really does, doesn't it?
28 schoolgirls in Galerías, Colombia, were hospitalized, exhibiting similar symptoms, fainting, anxiety, and other unexplained ailments.
I read about that. Wild, right?
And the suspected culprit.
A Ouija board session gone wrong.
You can just imagine the frenzy this must have caused.
Oh, absolutely. Parents were concerned, the community was buzzing, and the school was trying to figure out what really happened.
What did the school say?
Well, the school principal even issued a statement urging everyone to avoid judgments and early diagnoses.
You got to wonder what those girls might have experienced. Do you think it was a genuine paranormal encounter, or is there a more psychological explanation at play?
That's where things get really interesting, right? On the surface, some might dismiss this as mass hysteria, a phenomenon where physical symptoms spread through a group due to stress or anxiety.
Oh yeah, like a chain reaction almost.
Exactly. But then again, beliefs around spirits and the supernatural vary drastically across cultures.
That's true. What might be brushed off as a psychological episode in one culture could be seen as a completely normal spiritual encounter in another.
Precisely. And this story highlights that diversity of belief systems, don't you think?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It challenges us to consider that our own understanding of the world isn't the only one.
Right. And what we might perceive as impossible might be a part of everyday life for someone else.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder to stay open-minded, especially when encountering the unknown. I'm not sure I'll be rushing out to buy a Ouija board anytime soon, though.
Me neither.
Well, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of the strange, the surprising, and the downright unbelievable. We covered everything from the world of staged wrestling matches and unusual legal battles to sushi scandals and social media shenanigans.
It's been quite a ride.
And, as we always say here on The Deep Dive, sometimes reality is just stranger and, let's be honest, a lot more entertaining than fiction.
Couldn't agree more.
So next time you're scrolling through the news and come across a headline that makes you do a double take, don't just scroll on by. Dive in, see what's beneath the surface. You might be surprised at what you find.
You never know what hidden gems are out there.
Exactly. Keep that curiosity alive, folks. And remember, the world is full of surprises, some stranger, and yes, even funnier than others. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an eye out for the unexpected.